concerns or facility needs, please let him know. Excellent. Welcome, everybody. I'm Kathy Bisbee. I'm the Executive Director at Brookline Interactive Group. How many of you have been here before? Anyone? Everyone's new. Wonderful. And is anyone from Brookline? Wonderful. Glad to have you. Hope to see you again. We'll talk a little bit about what we do here in the course of the evening as it relates to VR and filmmaking in particular. But I'm really honored to partner with the Boston Jewish Film Festival and have you here tonight. So thank you so much for coming. We are going to be recording audio of this, and we also are recording, as you can see, we're in a television studio. In fact, any Brookline or Boston or beyond resident can come in and make television programming here that we also use for films, for VR productions, and also for YouTube. So we have a very modern day community media center here in Brookline. We're actually one of the leading organizations in the country. We just won Best Community Media Center in the country this year nationally. So we're very proud of our resources here and the programs that we have. And we'd love to tell you more about them. So if you have questions or would like to know more, please ask us after the panel. So I'm going to have a seat here and introduce our panel. So as I said, I'm Kathy Bisbee. I'm the executive director here. And this is Nir Dharam. He's the lead creative designer for Brookline Interactive Group and for our project, the Public VR Lab. I'm also the co-founder of the Public VR Lab, and I'm the current director. And Timur, we meant to actually say that you're the creator of Holy City, so my apologies.
This says creator.
I think creator.
I am
just
the
creator.
It's
a
little
little
C.
C.
A little C.
Yeah.
Little C.
Yeah.
I'll take the little C.
That was my fault. We had an updated slide I didn't include, so my apologies. So I just wanted to, before we get into bios and such, I want to just say we're going to have just a short discussion, and we have a little PowerPoint that we'll use for our conversation tonight. But we really want to hear what your questions are and what your interests are and areas where we might be able to shed some light on topics around VR filmmaking and cinematography in VR. And then, so we'll open it up to questions and have it be a little bit of a dialogue at the end. So we want to make sure that it's very participatory here. And of course, you know that there's an opportunity to do VR demos, and I'm assuming you're all excited. How many of you have tried VR before? Quite a few of you. Okay. How many of you have done some kind of augmented reality? No? Okay, so new for. How many of you have not tried VR at all? Okay. How many people have seen a 360 video? Okay, so we have a pretty well-educated, well-informed crowd. I would expect that. Great. So hopefully we can shed some more light on these topics for you. So this is me. You can read a little bit about me. I'm very passionate about a couple of things. I'm passionate about access for all in virtual reality and media and technology in general. I'm also working on sexual harassment policies for major tech conferences around the country. So I'm actually going to put that out there because I'm soliciting input. I would love to hear if folks are doing work elsewhere in that area. We're hoping it's going to be broadly shared amongst the tech community. And I am also a filmmaker. I'm also a creator, but we needed a moderator. So I'm filling in as the moderator and also kind of a semi-panelist. This is a 3D apparition of me that Nir created, and if you watch the video, you will see that it's very eerie when you scan someone in 3 dimensions. So we are 3-dimensional.
Uncanny Valley.
Timur is going to show us actually some of this on his project, but it's very eerie. People Nir spun me around in the video. It's very creepy actually to watch. And this is Nir. Nir, do you want to talk a little bit about your background? Just I'll let you guys do it.
My
Let's
background,
read this.
I come from the graphic design background and documentary filmmaking background. But like Kathy, my real passion is VR, AR, 360, or what we call here XR, I guess. So yeah, that's what my real passion is. That's what I try to, work and do here, and that's what most interests me.
And we're going to tell you guys a little bit about some of the projects that we're working on here
Yes.
that's VR in the public interest. Cory, you want to talk a little bit about yourself? I'll put your slide.
Okay, first of all, I'm really embarrassed by this photo. So I'll
He promises to do this for the entire
Yeah. So, what am I doing? I come from initially from a music background, which turned into music videos, and then through that into live visuals, and eventually it turned into virtual reality, and now it seems that I'm a documentary filmmaker somehow. We started Occupied VR maybe 4.5, 5 years ago at like the first resurgence of VR since the 90s. And initially just 2 or 3 people, strapping sensors to our heads and trying to figure out what the hell is going on. We're now like at 15 people. It's a team of strange but amazing, talented people. And we run the gamut from everything from entertainment-based things like games and a lot of documentary stuff now. We work closely with Vice and Samsung. A few projects coming up: Sharkwater 2, Tail of the Jaguar with Vice. Holy City is in development right now. So we're basically just committed to pulling in every discipline that has anything to do with this. Everything from 360 filming to photogrammetry to videogrammetry to straight game engine stuff to AR stuff, and to blur the lines, basically, until you don't know what's happening anymore. Is that the right thing to say?
Yeah, that's the future.
One of the quotes I almost put in the slide as one of the slides today was Reggie Watts, the musician.
Oh yeah,
he's a lot of things, but he's predominantly known as a musician from the UK. He said the problem with VR is that you don't know who you are anymore because it takes you on such a journey, and I think it is sort of this whole idea of being a multidisciplinary artist. A lot of us are calling ourselves that now because it's multiple disciplinary in so many ways, because we're bringing so many things into VR: coding, photography, photogrammetry,
it's
filmmaking,
everything.
journalism, all of it. So I think we'll touch upon some of those topics tonight.
Yeah. And in my opinion is it's not all about escapism. And that's what everybody thinks that it is. It's like, oh, I'm going to put it on and I'm going to be someone else. It can be used and utilized in much more important ways, I think.
One of the quotes I've heard is, you can pick up a pen and with it you can write a love letter, or you can write a letter of hate. And I think technology is very much the same way. And
Yes.
VR is the same as any technology tool. It can be used for love or for hate or for good or for evil. So we're going to talk about the good ways VR is being used tonight. That segue. We're going to talk a little bit first about the Public VR Lab. Do we have some audio? Near me, this lovely creation with our interns. There's the 3D scan.
That's you.
It's the peak of my career, clearly. So we're going to explain a little bit about some of those things, but we're very proud of the work that we've been doing the last year and a half here at the lab. So I'm going to just talk for a few minutes about the Public VR Lab, what we're doing here. We really started seeing about 2 years ago that VR and sort of we call things VR. We're going to get into what is VR and what isn't VR here in a moment. But I like to call it the umbrella of VR because there are a lot of things that fall under VR, and things are going to get even more complicated in terms of the language. There are whole podcasts that discuss the semantics of using the word VR to explain many of the projects that we're going to talk about tonight. But we really saw 2 years ago that VR was really emerging as a new way to tell stories. And we felt like because of the community-based storytelling and training programs and accessibility that we offer in the traditional media space, we wanted to do that also in this emerging media space. So we were the first public access community media center in the country to get VR and to start learning. And now we're actually creating a national network. We're actually building a national movement right here from Brookline around the country. We have about 6 different libraries who are now in the process of buying our VR toolkits. So we have demo toolkits, and we're also creating VR creator toolkits with the intent to provide more accessibility into this space. Because very similarly to traditional media 35 years ago when our organization started, you could not walk into a television studio, you couldn't walk into NBC and get your own television show, nor could you find equipment. And when PortaPax came out and you were able to have a more field-based filmmaking technique, well, there was still a price issue. Most people couldn't afford that, and most people couldn't afford the kind of training unless you had gone to film school or elsewhere. So that's really why community media exists, both in the US and in Canada. Mm-hmm. And we're actually working with our Canadian partners. I say that because Timur is from Toronto. Oh. And we're working with our Canadian partners. In fact, right now they're doing a case study about the innovative work that we're doing here to try to really reinvent and bring new things into the community media space through emerging media and through the Public VR Lab. So in January, we'll be launching our national affiliate program. We've already got folks who are purchasing them locally. Boston Neighborhood Network has purchased one in the Brookline Library. So we'll be able to check out VR equipment and filmmaking equipment, and we'll be doing training programs. And we've done a number of training programs that we'll talk a little bit about. But you can, if you're a Brookline resident, it's free. You can come in here. We are going to raise the rates because it's very popular, so we're getting lots of people coming in. If you're not a Brookline resident and you live in the area, you could come in and for $60 a year, you can become a member and you can use our entire facility. So we have a conference room. We have 2 television studios where people are also creating VR content, and then we have 26 after-school programs that we teach for K through 12. We taught 85 classes to youth and adults last year just out of the space, and the VR Academy that we started about a year ago has been very popular with young people, as you can imagine. We just had one of our interns go off this summer and get an internship with a big VR company and startup locally, and then also do a TED Talk about VR. So we're spinning out some new creatives, and people who are wanting to sort of learn new tools also in their careers, or their second chapter of their career, or the third chapter of their career. We're really excited to really think about creatives as a trade, and we really do a lot of kind of apprenticeship programs here and internship programs here. We had 17 interns this summer. So a lot of them were doing some of the things that you saw in that video, creating content and doing 3D scans, and Nir has had them doing a number of things. They were out at the Brookline DPW dump site just yesterday, shooting 360 footage that we're taking to a project in the United Nations here in 2 weeks in Kenya. So that's the Public VR Lab. Anybody have any questions about what we do, or does that make sense? Okay, great. Anything you want to add on that?
No, you did good.
Okay, excellent. So I wanted to open this up for all of us to talk about, because I think we're going to probably all have a lot to add in this slide. So I thought we could just explain what sort of is under the umbrella, if you will, of VR. And if I've missed anything, let me know as well. Anybody have one they want to really particularly?
I just like visual fishbowl over your head.
I have to say, I didn't come up with that one, but I have heard lots of
It's-
people say it, and it fits, right?
It's kind of accurate.
Yeah. How would you describe? How do you describe it to people?
I mean, 360 video is like 360 photography has been around forever. Like I don't even know when it started. Like the 80s, maybe. 360 video. I see everything stepping away from that, in my opinion. Like right now, everybody like, oh, I have a project. It's virtual reality, and is it virtual reality really if it's just a 360 video? It's a question that we at Occupy like always argue over. And I like, what are your thoughts on that?
I don't think it's virtual reality. 360 for me
It's
is
not,
a different
right?
category. It's like more documentation of whatever, wherever
Yes.
you are. Yeah.
But so much gets passed off, like, oh, virtual reality. But for virtual reality, for it to be like a new reality, you have to be able to move around in it,
Yeah.
not just turn
Well,
your
at
head.
least interact with it in some way. I
Yes.
think. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, so what it is
Yep.
you put it on. I mean, this is what the majority of all the phone-based stuff is, like the Samsung Gear. You put it on and you're wearing the headset, and you can turn your head. You can't walk over here. You can't do anything, basically. You can maybe put some gaze triggers a little bit, but you're shackled to what is basically, when unwrapped, is an equirectangular video, and it's a video like this.
Think about
Rectangular.
360
Yeah.
You know
rectangular
when you
video.
have the globe at the atlases?
So imagine if you take the
open it.
globe and you open the globe, and it's this side is this side. It wraps around you. It's just a way of, yeah. I mean, you'll see, like, we do a lot of that because a lot of, like, any kind of commercial work, that's usually where it ends. Like, they're just, because a lot of, like, clients just want a quick turnaround, and, like, they want the hype of VR. So you'll see, like, the unwrapped stuff if the demo reel comes up. But it's just a video. I mean, like, you could, like, unwrap it and you can treat it like regular post-production, like run it through After Effects, do whatever, and then rewrap it around you. It's not real virtual reality.
Well, I can push back
Yeah.
on that.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Let the
'Cause
debate
For
begin.
example, we had a project here that was named Hopes and Dreams. We saw the logo over there.
Yeah.
And what we did basically, we took interviews of people from the community who told us their hopes and dreams for 2017, and then we took a 360 shot of them.
Yeah.
And then we sliced each interview because when you put a 360 camera in the middle of the room, it takes the whole sphere. So if
Yeah.
you're a person talking to the camera, you basically just a small slice of this whole thing. So we cut all those slices and stitched them back together. And once you put the headset on, you are in the middle of a circle of people who are telling you their hopes and dreams.
We did something almost
Wait a minute,
identical.
but we added one more really cool feature because we actually put it in WebVR. Basically, whoever you look at starts to talk and tell you his hopes and dreams. So you basically have the control.
And
on
the 3D
documentary.
positional audio as well.
Back then we didn't have it. Now
Now we do.
have the ability. That was our first project.
We
so
did. My partner Jay Lee, he's one of the main partners at Occupied. He did a piece with Vice called Cutoff, and it was basically following the stories of Shoal Lake 40 and Cross Lake, in a rash of teen suicides at a native reserve, and water problems. And there was a scene in it, and he did like the same thing, and it had such a huge impact. And actually 2 days ago he was giving a talk in Toronto about VR empathy. It's like, because all we do is talks, but and how a talking head on a documentary, cut off here, and then the same talking head with a full body in front of you in VR, and the difference, the emotional
It's totally
impact.
different. Even I created this project, and we basically used it on. I saw it on the laptop all the time. All the people again and again. And then finally we put it on the Vive, and you put the headset on, and suddenly you're actually in the circle of. I actually teared a little bit inside. I'm serious. It was
Yeah,
really
you
that
see the
emotional.
mannerisms
Yeah.
and like the shaky foot, and you're like there with them.
Yeah.
I'm going to
It's-
pull us back a little bit
Oh,
because
sorry.
no, it's great. This
Yeah.
is exactly wonderful, and I think we want to get into this kind of discussion, but I want to make sure that we don't lose anybody in the
Yeah,
process
sorry.
because there are people who are brand new to VR and they may already be lost. So I just want to pull us back. So I mean, I think the fishbowl is a great metaphor
Yeah.
that I've heard people use quite often, and the folks over at Frontline, if any of you watch PBS and Frontline, they have done. I actually want to give them credit because they over a year ago came and did a public VR lab meetup here. That was our first meetup, and they talked about their projects and they talked about their workflow. They talked about editing. It was fascinating to us because we had just edited our first pieces maybe a month before that. So to learn from them was amazing. But they are just doing 360. However, they were the first really doing, I think, some of the really high quality international 360 pieces, and it is often people's first entry point into VR. So I think it is important. I think that's why I
Yes.
call it an umbrella. It's a rainbow of VR, right?
I mean, I don't want to like crap all over 360 VR.
Nor do I. However, I'm right there with you in that I don't.
We should be
I don't,
pushing it.
I don't call it real VR either. But when we're onboarding people to VR and we're helping them understand, and we go to the senior center here in Brookline. We've gone to the teen center. We are teaching Unity classes to middle school kids to teach them how to create VR.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's like the first stepping stone into it.
Right.
I still
Right.
think that where we're at is the first stepping stone into where we're going to eventually be in like 15 years from now.
So I think we might want to talk a little bit about that. I want to circle back to that at the end because I think where we're going is as important as where we are now.
Yes.
We are a very, very nascent industry right now. You hear all this hype and you think, oh, it's happening. VR is really happening. And then we go to conferences and we're like, wow, we're the only nonprofit who's doing any VR. And wow, there's really nobody that's pushing the boundaries like you guys are. I mean, there's not as many people as I would expect at this point in the industry. So we're still bleeding edge. We still experiment all the time and fail and fail and fail and iterate and iterate and iterate. And that's really one of the best ways to learn it and to learn from people. There's lots more tutorials online. We have a ambisonic sound tutorial that Nir and one of the interns worked on and did a great job on this summer, a video that you saw a little bit of in our reel. So, there's lots of ways to kind of get into it, but I think the general public, there's an assumption that the general public understands VR by some of us in the industry. And I think it's important just to say that VR is still really at its nascent stages. And I think what it looks like now is not what it's going to look like in 5 years. Would you guys agree? Do you have any thoughts, just initial
I
thoughts
completely
about
agree.
that?
Like completely agree
Yeah.
with everything you said.
Yeah, and also it's really at nascent stage, as you said, because we had a project that we showed at Hub Week at Boston a few weeks ago, and we basically demoed it to the public, and then I was amazed. I mean, because we are also inside of bubble, because we always talk about VR, and people talk about our project in VR, and suddenly you think to yourself, okay, people know what it is, and then when the public came, and I was amazed. So we always ask them, is this your first VR experience? And most of them said, yes, it is. And I said, okay, I need to step back a little bit because nobody really knows what it is. So you need to realize even your vocabulary and the way you talk about it should be different when your peers.
Different
and
audiences,
from
yeah.
the public.
Well, we're just a bunch of nerds, right? We're nerds.
I think we'll know that the industry is no longer nascent when the foundations that we're going to as a nonprofit trying to get funding and as filmmakers trying to get funding, when they actually understand it and can talk about it themselves. And we're not seeing that yet. We're seeing, I get looks like, what are you talking about? And so I think it's important to go over these things so that people really all have the same understanding of what these concepts are inside of VR. So what Timur was talking about was this volumetric VR, which is the ability to sort of move inside of VR so that the controllers know kind of where you are within a kind of room scale VR. So for those of you that go inside the Vive tonight, the HTC Vive, which is like an Oculus, Vive was actually the first one that came out. We like it better.
Well, I think,
Yeah, it's kind of a little bit more preferred by developers, but I think Oculus is catching up. It got behind a little, it's catching up.
Yeah.
There's a lot of different headsets. Microsoft is coming out with their new visor. We have a PlayStation VR here, and we have a place where developers can come in and try all their content on all of the different devices here. There's, Daydream, Google Daydream. That's a really affordable version of VR, but doesn't give you quite as much of the feeling and the empathetic feeling that you feel when you actually see another human being inside of VR. You really feel like you're there with them. This sense of presence is really important. And that, for me, that's what turned me on to VR. I was at the Future of Storytelling conference in New York, and I had an ex who was a gamer, and I just hate games. I hate video games. I don't like them. And my fiance now has kind of made me have a new understanding of them, because he's helped me understand the narrative part of them and how beautiful the narrative. He's been getting me to play Firewatch, which I will try to get through. But what happened for me was I put a headset on and I watched the story about a Syrian refugee girl in France, and I took the headset off and I was in tears. I was so moved because I really thought I was there with her. It really took me, it transcended my reality and took me to a different reality. And I think that is really one of the most empowering, compelling, narrative-based kinds of storytelling that we can do in VR, is where we really achieve empathy. And you'll hear, it gets hyped a lot, the empathy factor, but it's really true. It's a really visceral reaction. I've done hundreds and hundreds of experiences, and I still go inside of VR and I scream when there's a zombie running at me, or when there's someone coming. He just showed me yesterday the when he was showing the I don't know, with a bulldozer, I guess, that was scooping
Crane
up
or
trash,
something.
and it kind of swung to my left, and I was watching it on an iPad, and I ducked. So it's that visceral, right? You really feel like you're there. So that 360 can do that for
It
you.
can.
Yeah, and it can have
Yeah.
that impact, and I think it's a good entry point. Volumetric is really the tracking device, is tracking your movement inside of the room.
And scanning.
Yeah.
And volumetric VR is either, it could be just straight game engine stuff, like you're in a video game, you've created it in Unity or wherever, and you move around it. But what we've been really focusing on is scanning everything. So it's scanning this entire room. Moving objects are more difficult, but scanning, say, this entire room, we have various techniques, and then being able to, instead of just turning your head, I could walk around and look under the table and actually explore the environment. With that, that's what I would say is virtual reality.
Yep.
It's when you step into that's the real stuff.
Or you can actually teleport. We're stealing language from science fiction because we don't have any language in VR. So
Yeah.
teleport has made it into the vernacular, if you will, of virtual reality. So we're clicking on a button and we're going from one location to the next location. Inside, you're transported through VR from one space to another. So teleporting makes
Yeah.
it sort of volumetric.
Yeah.
If you can teleport, that's VR. That's
Yeah, that is.
volumetric.
It's
Yeah, even
If
though-
you can pick up an object on a desk and drop it on the floor, that's VR.
yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
just wondering. If you scan a real room, is this really VR? It's also sort of documenting the room in
It is.
another dimension.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, VR is like it's a mix between reality and object and elements and layers that we add to it in the
Yes.
virtual world.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you bend reality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's move on to augmented reality. I like to describe it as an overlay because it's really you're not going into a fantasy world. You're not teleporting through space to Alaska or Rome or what have you. You're actually seeing this reality, what we call reality, which I think is going to change in the next 5 years, how we define reality because of VR. But it's an overlay of virtual reality overlaid over real reality. So some examples, Pokemon Go is the best example of that happened a year ago, last summer. And then it kind of fizzled out. I guess there's a few people playing still. But
There's a lot of people still playing it. One of my partners in my
Not very
company,
many.
Are you playing it?
Blair, I'm going to call
Very
him
few
out.
people will admit it.
Still playing it. Grown man, still playing it.
So there's other examples of it too. And there's also ethical issues coming up because of augmented reality. This question of who owns augmented space. So if this is here, could someone in the audience put an augmented object over my slide and block my slide? If somebody's looking through augmented reality glasses, for example, these are the kinds of issues that are coming up. There's also there was a really interesting court case that was precedent setting in Michigan that was about a park. The Parks and Recreation Department, the director got very upset because people with a augmented reality game had everybody come to this park and had to look for kind of Pokemon Go type objects in the park in augmented reality, and they didn't have any permits for the park, and they didn't have a license for that many people in the park, and they didn't have porta potties, which I can imagine probably caused a problem. But they lost because augmented reality is not real reality. So this is what I mean. I think
That's really interesting.
It's really interesting,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I think it's going to shift. I mean, I think that will probably get overturned at some point if nuisances are created, like everything. But that's augmented reality. Does everybody get that? Anybody have questions about this definition? And then WebVR is kind of my favorite. I think it's one of our favorites here at Big because it's very digitally inclusive. It's very inclusive. It allows you to use VR on the web. It's also kind of an overlay. It's based on JavaScript and HTML. And so someone like me who was a web developer back in the day, I can learn it without having to be a super uber coder because I'm not quite that geeky. I'm just like only geeky enough that I can do web development. But it enables VR on the web, and Mozilla just a couple months ago enabled it on their browser and has been a big proponent of making web VR a reality. What it's going to do is when we go to Africa, we're not downloading any files to the Vive or to our computers. We're just looking at the VR experience over the web, and we'll be able to lock that. So if we don't have Wi-Fi, we'll hopefully still be able to see it. But it's kind of exciting because it means that you don't have to have a headset. You know, you have to buy a HTC Vive $800 or $600, you know, Oculus kind of headset. So, and that uses mostly the predominant one right now is A-Frame. And we teach A-Frame here at Big if you're interested in learning how to code. Anybody else want to say anything about WebVR?
What's nice about WebVR is it's basically multi-platform. So you can do the project and you can watch it on your headset, you can watch it on your phone, you can watch it on your desktop, and it still works. The reason we did it for the Hopes Dream thing was originally the project was for the Vive. And then we realized not many people have Vives and not many people were able to see it. And they said, okay, let's make an iPhone app. And again, I don't know of a lot of people who download an app just when you send them a link. And then we said a desktop app, but that was 2 gigabytes. And then we said, okay, let's just make a website. And then you just send a link and everybody can click it no matter what device they're using. And they can see it. And that was a good solution. At this point of the technology, of where the technology is, we need solution like that. Because people don't have the headset.
So I think I put these on the bottom of this because these are the ones that come to my mind, and I think maybe would both of you like to speak a little bit to some of these important thoughts? And we've talked about presence a little bit, but maybe touch upon presence or experience, breaking the fourth wall. Are there any of those that you'd like to talk about or think about?
I think that one of the challenges in creating a VR experience or 360 experience is how to navigate the person, the user, I don't know how to call it, to where you want him to look. Because if you can create the most amazing thing over there, but the person who's looking inside the headset will look over there and will miss everything. So first of all, you have to think like in 360. You have to put enough interesting things all around you. And I think that one way to direct him is sound. And I think sound is very exciting right now. I mean, Kathy mentioned ambisonic sound before, and what it means basically is you can record the sound all like in a 360 way, but then it will move together with you. So if he's talking and I'm looking over there, I will hear him from here. But when I look over here, I will hear him from there. And that's super important. And it's just, I mean, it's became accessible right now, and we can actually use it. And it's super, it like upgrades the experience in a very, in an amazing way. I think that's part of it.
And it's funny too, is like a lot of the ambisonic, like, and binaural recording techniques, they're old too, like 70s. We have this really old microphone where one of my other partners, Fez, he had it, and it was basically, it looks like a stethoscope, and Sennheiser made it. It's super old. And instead of like you hear in, there are 2 microphones. So basically 2 microphones go inside of your ear, and it replicates, you know, the shape of your ear and records it like that. And then when you actually listen to it, for something from the 70s, you're like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And then the ambisonic mics are like, okay, if you take one head like this and then you put another, so imagine you have 2, like there's 1 mic, 2 mics, and then same head, 3rd mic, 4th mic, and then all of a sudden you have your head in this position and your head in this position, and you know, by default that position. And then if you decode it properly, it's It's amazing.
Yeah.
People always overlook sound, even in film and stuff. They always continuously overlook the soundtrack and something. And like a crappy movie can have the best soundtrack. All of a sudden, it's incredible.
It's true. Yeah, it's
Another
very
way of guiding action, and it's funny, my partner Jay at another talk yesterday was talking about was if, say, in a 360 video, something was happening here and it's moving over here, what the person will do is watch that. If you're going to do a cut, what you have to do is the focal point has to be here. So basically, if you use every shot as basically like passing the baton from the focal point to the next focal point. So with that, I mean, Metal is for 360 video, we know them really well, amazing plugins. You can easily rotate the center of your action. So we had this project with, it was for Samsung. It was, it was a Brian Semenek. It was a BMX thing. They commissioned us to do, and he's riding his bike. He's flying all over the place, and he was like doing a trick, and he's over here. And then if the next clip he's here, you're gonna totally miss it before you even look back. So we had to like put the center. It seems like a simple thing, but you have to keep that in mind.
Do you want to
Because
talk
there's
about
nothing worse.
slowing it down a little bit? I mean, that's one of the things we've really found
Yeah.
is that, we're used to this fast pace. We're doing a lot of highlight reels. You've got to slow it down. You've got to give people an
Yeah.
opportunity. Corbin's bringing in a 360 camera. I just wanted to be able to show people if you can just put that. Thank
That's
you,
a Nikon.
Vanna.
Yeah.
So you can.
Key mission.
What Timur was talking about is the fact that both for cameras and also for the microphones, you're actually with the camera you're shooting. He's going to shoot some of us as well, so you
Oh,
guys
I
will
don't think
all
there's a
be in the
card in
picture.
There's a card.
So you have one 180 lens and another 180 lens. So both of these are lenses. And one of the things we notice is that people automatically try to get out of your frame. Whenever, if you've got a big camera and you're taking pictures, people walk out of the frame. You can't, there is no frame.
Yeah.
There's no out of frame.
It's super funny. Whenever I use it, I ask people, because I look for the best locations, like, can I put my 360 camera here? And I just did it on New York, and he said, well, yeah, as long as I'm not in it, when you can't really know.
I mean, I used to hide. We would because we basically at this point we develop our own rigs. So we've been
Right.
3D,
Wow.
like we've been really hacking, various lenses. Like you were talking about slowing things down for the Brian Semenek thing. We actually took it was this lens. It was old Nikkor lens. The lens is this big. It's 250 degrees. It was like a $70,000 lens, and we put it on a Phantom, right? So this guy's doing a crazy trick. You can actually, it's in that trailer. He's doing a crazy trick, and we slowed it down, 1,000 frames per second, and it's so it's the lens it's 250, so it's shooting here. So what's here is on this lens. And then what we did was drop the nodal point, flip the camera, and then got the back plate, and then all of a sudden you have a slow motion shot 360 on a Phantom. But we've been developed that was like a pure hack, right? Like this lens, it was the most beautiful lens. But
This is what filmmakers dream of.
yeah.
Lenses. DPs anyway.
And we've been hacking all of this stuff, and then also dealing with stuff like you're always in the shot, but as long as you get a clean plate, you can paint yourself out of the shot. I mean, for the initial stages, man, we were just like, okay, it's like action, and then just like
Run.
hide under a table, and then cut. Do we have it? Like, won't know for 2 days.
Yeah.
So
Do you want to talk about that? Nir,
shooting
too?
blind.
Yeah, we shot a piece at the Needle in Boston, at the National Emerging Infectious Diseases Laboratories, where they
Ebola.
grow the Ebola, basically. So
Wow.
we followed like a scientist who grows Ebola and treats her like her pet. That's her quote.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and so basically what you have to do is like she's in this like inflated suit, and you can't really. So we had 3 mics, one inside the suit, one on the camera, one of these beneath the camera, and then you give her direction instructions, and then you go out the door, close it, lock it, like.
Yeah, the whole.
And just hope that she will do whatever she's supposed to do back there in the room, and you can't really see it. I mean.
Yeah.
Well, you can if you put the card out and go to another room and then watch it. But yeah, but we had to do it like several times just in case she will miss or she will do something we didn't want to do.
As the producer, I was just panicking in these
That's
moments
pure
because
panic.
I was thinking, there's no way we're getting audio on this. We have to. How do we know? So we were listening to the one audio. We had a second audio. We had multiple audio tracks to make sure we got the sound. But it was also, is she gonna, you're used to coaching and directing and telling talent what to do, and once you give her the overview, that's it. She's on her own. The other example was, I was thinking of the when you guys shot the infant trauma lab, at the Boston Children's Hospital, right?
Yeah, so that was also very intense because they basically did a heart-lung bypass on a doll that looks freakishly real. And I mean, it's all the docs are 13 doctors in the room, and we had 30 seconds. They do the procedure, and that's it. So we put 3 cameras, and we weren't supposed to interrupt them in any way. But then I'm going, and peeking out the window because I was on the other outside the room, and then to my horror, I see that one of the cameras is covered with a blanket because in the act of all this craziness, they put the blanket out of the baby and threw it on my camera, so I had to sneak in, take the blanket out. And
the one
sneak
thing
out
that
there.
we've been dealing with the problem of shooting blind is having live stitch to stream. So basically, where the cameras are, having an onboard computer which is getting everything and then stitches it live like a rough stitch, and then wirelessly shoots it off camera, and could actually have a headset
That's cool.
and be previewing it, and then having a talkback thing, which we had this one rig we called the Johnny 6. It was 6 high-end cameras with the on-stitch thing with a gimbal system and a remote control and a talkback system. So
Nice.
you could be over here and be directing, and had it some lighting on it also, so you can actually be directing and talking to people and seeing a rough stitch, so you're not completely that you can actually direct again.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to explain why that's such a problem with 360? Because people may not understand that. Why is it so hard to shoot blind, aside from being out of the room? I mean, the stitching issue. You want to kind of describe what that is?
The turnaround
people
time.
and people being out on the stitch too, right?
Yeah.
Having to sort of move people so that the way that the camera's lined up isn't on the stitch when you're stitching. Do you want to describe that, one of you?
Yeah, so basically when you do 360, it's either using 2 cameras or rig with lots of cameras, but the issue is whenever you have, in this example, 2 images, so we have one half a sphere here, one half a sphere here, and then you have to stitch them together seamlessly so it will be nicely looked. But that's a challenge. So it depends on how far you are and what's going on there. So my advice to you, whenever you see a 360 camera, never stand where the stitches are, because then your face probably will be half, a broken mirror effect, sort of. So
It can be far away, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's
Yeah.
a radius where the parallax is just going to crack, and you're screwed.
yeah, I know. I went to this event and I took a 360 camera shot, and then I posted it on Facebook, and the head of this program, her head was just cut, and she said, what is this? So I told her, lesson number 1, never stay in the stitching area
Right.
when you do 360.
I'm getting the word that we have to kind of move a little more quickly. So I just put this up. This kind of gives you a sense. I think we've talked about a lot of these actually, which I
think we
think is really
talked
good. You have very little control. You don't have the traditional kind of filmmaking control that you have. We talked about that. We talked a little bit about the different ways that you could do this.
We almost talked about all that.
We did. That's
Yeah.
great. Excellent. And then I just put these up as the promise and the challenges. Is there anything on here that you guys would just want to maybe take 1 minute and talk about that you think is really important? Can you guys see this? So we've talked about a lot of these. I mean, I do want to say one thing. This is not just about VR as a technology. This is about a shift to spatial computing and 3D computing. And so a lot of times when we're talking about VR, we actually say 3D, because really this is going to be a whole different way of doing computers. We're not going to have devices anymore. We're not going to have computers. We're not going to be tied to a device. There will be a point at some point down the road. I don't know how long that is. I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody
This is
really
what we were
knows.
talking about earlier.
Maybe 5 years, 10.
This is the infant stages of what, I mean, me and Occupy, we always believe that it's this is the start, and then it will be AR, and then eventually the headset will disappear, and then it'll be you know, it will get smaller and
Glasses or-
smaller until it disappears, and then it'll be holographic projection, and then it's going to be basically like a Minority Report. I mean, that's where we're heading.
Actually, Minority Report looks old now.
It does look old.
Yeah.
Anything else in here that you guys want to make sure we just like quickly address?
Yeah, and I want to say that I think it's a really exciting period right now, and because all the rules are being built as we speak, we kind of develop them as we go along. He said hacking all that. That's what we feel all the time. Whenever we have a project, we kind of need to invent it, or we feel like we're the only one in the world who's doing it. There are probably more, but you know, there are no rules, there are no tutorials, there are no like lessons. You have to like learn it yourself, which is really cool.
It's
And
exciting.
That's
it's
why
not,
we're here too, to help people figure out how to do it. and
It's
to learn
exciting.
from
It's like technology should not be feared, you know? And yeah, like there is the inherent bad side to cutting yourself off from reality and you know, you just become a pod in the matrix. But I mean, that's what happened with television too. This is not like something to be feared and ignored because it's coming. In fact, we should embrace it and steer it in the right direction. Or else it will eventually just all end up being pornography.
It's not going to be that.
Good.
It's not. We're going to make sure that it's not. It's like anything. Like I said at the beginning, things can be used for good or for evil. And I think we've talked about a lot of these and we need to move on. But you can go to publicvrlab.com and read about all of our projects. We're going to Kenya in 2 weeks.
Should be awesome.
We're nervous and excited. We are presenting VR to the UN. We have
Environmental
a globe just like that. That's all the air pollution data for every country on the planet that we're going to be showing to 2,000 heads of state and ministers of state from 197 countries. Just couldn't be more thrilled. I hope we get there. I'll believe we're actually going when we get on the plane. But we'll show folks in the community what we've done when we come back from that. And that's more about that project. So I'll just say, you know, on our side, if you're interested in taking a class with us, we're doing filmmaking and cinematography in VR. We really start from very, very beginners to advanced. So please let us know if you're interested. We're starting an artist residency program next year, and we're launching the toolkit and launching the affiliate program all over the country. We really want to start a community VR movement. That's our idea, and we want to get it out in the world. You can follow us, and you can check out the website. With that note, I want to show a clip really quick of your project, so that because I think we're getting the wrap up.
Oh, the wrap
Is that
up?
right? Do we have how much time do we have left?
I think maybe end with the trailer and
End with the trailer. Does that work for you guys?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, there's the Holy City trailer. There's also the general. Oh my God, take that photo off.
I did it twice just because I know you.
Burn
love
that photo. There's the. It's either the Holy City trailer or, but I mean, people are gonna try it.
it. Right.
Also over
Maybe-
there, so you can.
So maybe
I
do
think
the
that's the
occupied.
I think the first one is
Is
the
the
Holy City.
occupied.
Let me see.
Yeah, so do
This
this
is the
one
right one?
because they can
Okay.
try the other thing. Yeah. It's a rough trailer. Various amount of work.
The world of the electron and the switch, the beauty of the code, the revolution will be televised.
That's the phantom shot there.
Love the music.
So that's a shot that was similar to
I'm
this.
super jealous of the Justin Trudeau one.
Oh,
You know.
Heartthrob?
I'm just saying I really value him for his politics.
Lies. So it's a rough trailer, but we actually, like my partner Jay, he went back and started going through the folders of stuff that we've done. It's like 4 years, we've done 60 projects.
Amazing.
I don't
And I'm
remember
really
any of
impressed
them.
at how much you guys have built your own systems, because I just want to say that is a huge endeavor to be having started so early in VR and then built your own systems. I mean, that was happening until about a year and a half ago, really a year ago. I mean, Premiere didn't add it into its 360, into its editing program until last July.
It was very, very difficult.
This is the Wild West days, for sure.
Yeah.
We're still a little bit in the Wild West days. But do you want to talk about Holy City at all and tell people what they're going to see when you demo it?
So Holy City is a co-production with my good friend Nimrod Shanit. He's born and raised in Jerusalem. And it started off as, I don't know, will everybody have a chance to try it? I mean,
You want me to show the
you know what? Show the trailer.
Okay.
It's only like 2 minutes.
this one?
I was also born and raised in Jerusalem.
Oh, were you?
Yeah.
I think this is it. Oh. Andrew, you might have to hit play. Because
It
is
started as a
not
360 documentary, over a year ago, and it was.
playing. Here we go.
Actually, this is just this is
That's the.
It's an example of a scan that was done of the Jaffa Gate in Jerusalem. So this is not CG. I mean, there's CG elements in it, but
Maybe this one?
probably.
What do we got? Maybe?
It started as a 360 thing. Life in Jerusalem through the eyes of a Muslim, a Jew, and a Christian, and how their lives interact. And it was supposed to be a POV thing. As time went by, I wasn't really. Oh my God! There's a photo
Sorry.
again.
Tried it again.
The 360 thing just wasn't cutting it for us, so we changed it, and we're actually going to make it an interactive, mixed with 360 with scanning, and you go. This is it. Yeah, here you go. And this is a Equa rectangle. Like you'll see that it's meant to be seen in a headset.
Okay. Will this be enough to be able to?
It will be enough
Okay.
once the text looks small, but. So there's no narrative. This was just shots, principal photography. This is the height of Ramadan at Al-Aqsa. That was Sukkot at the Western Wall. This is the St. James Cathedral in the Armenian Quarter, the Easter celebrations.
They're all like 5-minute walk from each other.
Yeah, it's
Wow.
the craziest
Thank you for
place.
giving that context.
Oh yeah. Just a share on that.
Where is this?
This is outside of the old city. This is in Al-Aqsa. That was there by myself, basically, for 12 hours. This is the Holy Fire ceremony at the Holy Sepulchre. There's a lot of, everything was done guerrilla. 1 or 2 people.
That's not one of your guys over there with the.
It actually, yeah. You say what?
Patagonia.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm here praying because I had to, you can't just be, on the side smoking a
Yeah.
cigarette.
How did you set this up? Get the shot up so that
Oh,
you would
it's
be
straight.
respectful of others too. I mean, that's obviously.
Yeah. It's a slippery slope.
Yeah.
Here I hopped over this minaret and climbed up and attached it with a thing in the female quarter of Al-Aqsa. Yeah, can't eat, drink, or smoke for 12 hours locked in there. It was, So, it started, to be a fly on the wall type thing. I'm glad that it's developed into what it is now.
So we hope that folks will get to try the experience, and we'll be breaking it in just a minute or two so that you can do that. Do we have any questions that folks want to ask? Do you want to say anything else before I open it up to questions?
This is
Mark?
the shot right here. This shot
Oh, wow.
in 360 is awesome. But yeah, I mean, I think we've been talking for a long time.
We
We've been
have.
talking for like way too long.
But it's good. Has this been helpful for folks? Okay, so some questions. I'm going to pause it, I think, if I can.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well done.
Excellent. Oops, I didn't mean to do that, but sorry.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
right.
Maybe they can fix that in post.
I'm Christina. I'm a professor at Emerson College and associate chair of the Department of Visual and the Arts.
Oh, excellent. Welcome.
I'm a filmmaker,
Mhm.
and in the traditional sense, but I've been dabbling in the 360 experience with the 7-camera GoPro rigs, and recently bought an
Insta 360.
Oh, great.
as a consumer camera just to test out.
It's not bad.
What's that?
It's not bad.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. And but I'm curious, what did you shoot with? I mean, the resolution looks really sharp.
Yeah.
It's various. I mean, that was shot over the span of like a year and a half, because all of those, like they're at the height of their holiest days. So, at one point, man, some of it is GoPros, but then like really up-resed and treated because of our our post-production and visual effects background before. We've spent years trying to figure out how to implement that into like stereoscopic and 3D, like everything, and it comes in handy. But nowadays, I mean, I really do not want to be shooting on any kind of GoPros. I hate them. They're the worst. It's a nightmare.
We can talk a little bit about the
Stitching is not
cameras
bad.
here. Do you want to talk about what we have at the lab?
Well, right now we're using the Nikon mostly. We did buy the Zcam S1, which is like really, it has four lenses as a
Zcam's not bad.
Yeah, the quality is actually really
Yeah.
really good. It got broken.
It had a mishap. On
Yeah, you know, it's a
location.
360. You can't stand next to the camera. We sent an intern to the Charles River to took some B-roll shots, and suddenly there was a gush of wind, and he saw the camera falling, but he had to run for it. But it was too late. So
I mean, we've done stuff with red cameras, you know, like it's basically once you figure the thing that we're glad that we did is we did it the hard way for so long that the cameras didn't exist and there was nothing. So by doing that, we figured out we could make our own and modify. I think that's, you know, a lot of these consumer cameras, everybody's coming at it, but there's no solution right now.
And also,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go, please.
And also, you have to remember that right now, the technology, no matter what camera you use, you basically, the whole sphere is 4K. So the part you're actually looking at is much less than 4K. So you can use them like a $100,000 camera, but sometimes the end result is kind of similar to those, like really.
It depends, yeah.
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 So I think right now you just wait. Also, you buy a camera and 6 months later it's only old.
But the Ozo is like
I'm gonna-
discontinued right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to push back a little bit on that because I really want a Yi Halo, which is kind of the next, it's the newest camera that's out, $17,000. It is very similar to the Ozo. The Ozo was a $40,000 camera. I almost bought one last year and thought about renting it here so people could have access. And decided not to because we knew the Halo was coming. We met the engineer from Google who worked with the Jump team to produce the Yi Halo.
Yeah.
And we've been trying to get on their beta test. So if they're watching, we really want one of those cameras, and we would promote it on television.
yeah, here
And
too. Yeah,
all of us.
Occupied also.
And we would make sure that it got to a lot of filmmakers. But I think, you know, that I've been really looking at the Yi. You know, the word's still out on it though, because you know, I'm on every Women in VR group and a lot of different VR groups, and I'm still just hearing preliminary reviews so far. The reviews are good, and Google's Jump platform is a good one, but we don't know how much they're going to charge for the stitching software. That's one of the things you need to think about is the cost of the stitching software. I mean, one of the problems with the Zcam is that we bought it on Kickstarter. It was super cool. It was cutting edge. It was bleeding edge. We broke it. And we paid $1,500 for the stitching software. So it's like a $4,500 loss. So we probably can recover some of it. But, you know, you're taking some risk when you're doing VR filmmaking. And I think you have to consider that. One of the things I like about the Nikon key missions is that they're $500. And we're actually, we have a national grant program for immigration that we're doing. We're doing the first immigration VR project, and it's a national cohort. So we have collaborators from Alaska to Philly and everyone in between telling immigration stories, and we're going to be putting it inside of VR. So we're giving them a Nikon key mission because we trust it. It's pretty good quality. I mean, if you see the stat project that we did with the Boston Globe, it's pretty high quality. People never comment that it's low quality, so that's good. If your viewer's happy with what they're able to see with it, I think that's enough for right now, unless you're trying to do something really high level and you have a $20,000 budget for a camera.
If you're gonna,
they were watching it through the Vives, and really, you know, I didn't have a problem with it, and I'm very, very particular about how I want things to look.
if you're just getting into it, I mean, you got to get the ball rolling, you know. So I would not go and dump like 40 G's on a Ozo, like.
Wait 6 months if you're going to do that, because I think the
It
Halo will
changes
see
so fast.
and other products.
Yeah.
You know, watch NAB in April and see what comes out. CES, there's probably going to be some things released there. There's a lot of cameras. I had a bet with my fiance for a while about how many cameras were going to come out in like a 6 month period, and we were both wrong. They were just like double that amount.
Yeah.
So watch what happens in the industry. Other quick questions that folks have? Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
How would that work on like walking around with it with image stabilization, or is it just you sit in a spot and it takes video as?
Well, it depends on your end result. I mean, if you're looking at what device you're gonna show it. I mean, if it's headset, I would not recommend holding it and moving it, because then it gives you like a disorientation feeling. And
You're also in the shot, right?
yeah,
It's
so
like you can't
probably
remove yourself.
Maybe, like, yeah, true.
That's like
that's really uncomfortable. But my biggest advice for you is just try, and also to you. I mean, just try whatever you think. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes things that you are sure that will be disastrous become interesting, and sometimes things you said, oh, that's going to be a really good shot, and then, oh, what did they do there? So, I mean, yeah, just explore, I think.
One of our secret sauce things at Occupied is our pipe. We spent so much time is the pipeline for horizon and image stabilization. Like all of our drone shots, like we can get the thing. Jay loves to call it the noodling effect, where just the image just becomes like this, and then everybody just barfs immediately. It's
Yeah,
like,
but if you watch it on YouTube on your desktop, that's totally fine. So you have to decide where.
but if we can get it so that even a drone shot going crazy, like that was Fez did a piece with Vice, and it was these racing drones, and they're flying up the side of the building and stuff, and you have to run it again and again and again and again, like 15 times through various programs, and then you can get it flat, and then all of a sudden you have like this beautiful shot. But it is possible. Walking around and stuff when you're doing that.
Don't
Not
walk with a
recommendable.
360 camera. Just don't do it. We have to cut.
Okay.
We have to cut. I'm going to call cut. And we would love to answer your questions, so we can do that off camera while you're sitting in line. We're happy to come talk to you. Is there anything else that you want to add?
No, so there's multiple projects that
Excellent.
you can experience. Some right here in this conference room. There are two. There's the names of each project on the door. In the theater, right, which was across from where you turned into here, there's more projects. And then sort of behind that desk, there's another project. So walk around, get a drink, hang out, check some out, see what all you've been talking about has led to, and Caltrail's great. And thank you all for being here and being a part of the Boston Jewish Film Festival and at the Red Interactive Group.
And I want to thank the Boston Jewish Film Festival and all of you for coming. And also, we are having professional development trainings here in 2018. So if you're interested, if you're an educator or filmmaker, let us know. We're designing those right now. We're going to be hosting them here. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you to our panelists.